it's really about technology becoming invisible.
Hey, what's shaking? Welcome back to All In. I'm your host, Rick Jordan, and we're having a recurring guest today. Someone who is just amazing in conversation with me because she just lights me up. And her background is an international top model and computer engineer. Now mix those two together and you've got a fashion technologist. And she's executive producer of the largest fashion tech events in China, which we're going to talk about today. CEO and founder of 360 Fashion Tech Lab, Anina Net. Welcome back.
Hey, I'm so delighted and excited to be talking with you. It's an incredible moment in history, and I can't wait to hear your perspective on digital fashion.
That's great. Let's talk let's start there today, because there's a lot of. We were just talking pre-show, and I'm like, we got to stop. We got to shut up so we can just actually press record on this here and get going. There's we started off with Snapchat filters, right? Or that's where we left off. Just because of you were talking on how the fashion industry is just really getting obliterated. You know, it's vaporized, just like a lot of other things after this past year. Where do you see this going right now?
Well, first of all, vaporized is a term from Robert Tursick. And it literally means what it sounds like, that physical objects are being turned into digital objects. And there's a whole new world literally that's being built right now called the metaverse, right? So even right now we are, together in this virtual space, even though we're decentralized in two different physical locations, right? And so that offers an opportunity for customization, creating different things that we could wear of these dematerialized fashion items. And I was saying before, what is digital fashion? Well, it's fashion that's been designed in a 3D environment. And now, thanks to camera tracking and through algorithms, that can be mapped to the body very much like a Snapchat filter or an Instagram filter, where you see you're wearing jewelry or you're wearing a hat or you're displaying any kind of digital overlay on top of the physical you. And so in reference to the Snapchat, one of the hardest nuts to crack has been, how do we track the physical body, right? Instagram can do the face, right? The facial recognition technology is prevalent everywhere, right? And camera visualization, pretty good. We know where our nose, ears, eyes, and mouth are. But how do we know where our shoulder joints are? How do we know where there's an elbow joint? How do you track the wrist in these virtual environments? And so Snapchat just recently came out with being able to track the upper body. And so now that can lead to the fact that you and I are not just here wearing our super cool t-shirts, but we could be wearing digital fashion, virtual fashion. I have on, makeup, but as you know, there are many filters that give me digital makeup. So maybe less for you, but if you were going to an online dance party or you were going to an online party, you might want to wear a cool virtual hat, or you might want to put on some, you're going to a sports game online and you're hanging out with your friends. You might want to wear like those cool, grease marks on your face, right?
Just for the looks, not the functionality this time around. No, it's so intriguing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so interesting because this is a world that's 3D, that's now becoming 2D, that's becoming 3D. It's intriguing.
Yes.
Yeah, we took 3D to 2D, and now it's becoming 3D again with everything else that we're adding in with digital fashion. Do you see in the future, because this is where my crazy brain goes, to where this might end up being legitimately 3D again, to where we have holographic images and almost like virtual environments to where we can step into? And how far off are we from that? You're talking about the digital dance parties. Could these literally fill a 3D room that you're in?
Well, I mean, virtual reality, right, is already here, and augmented reality is already here, and mixed reality is already here. And those things, of course, are dependent on hardware, right? He who has the goggles can enter the room, right? So it's almost like sadly to say, the digital divide. I do not have goggles, therefore I cannot attend, VR parties and conferences, etc. Right? I do have a smartphone, so therefore, with the latest iPhone, I can have enough processing power to, use AR to download some cool filters and stuff. And I have a fast enough, 4G, 5G connection that allows me then to download those, 3D objects, which can be quite heavy. So there is a digital divide developing, but in the developed countries, more and more people in the gaming have the right computing power to really dress an avatar, have an avatar, buy things for their avatar, and create, and exist on the metaverse.
That's so interesting, because that's what another place my mind was going, was the economics of digital fashion. Because even with Snapchat, there's a lot of, filters have been mostly free on those platforms for a long time. But now I could see it to where you have that hat you're going to the dance party with, that digital hat could be walking into a digital hat shop and then purchasing the hat you want to go to that digital dance party. And is that the world that you're fitting into now? Because there's a lot of cool stuff, and I watch a lot of your videos on the jacket that you design, and then the robot, and I'm really, really impressed, first off. And second, I'm really interested in the economics of this market too. Because do you mind if we shift just a little bit into the jacket? Because I'm curious. Cool. Your jacket's incredible. And I saw the way it interacts with the robot, and we'll get into that. This was called Project 147, right? And
yes,
it was backed by the EU, and which was Germany and Slovakia. No, wasn't
Slovenia.
It? Slovenia.
Slovenia. Yes.
The first part, because this is it's the economics. Why would these two countries want to jump on board with this and financially back it?
So before we go further, I would like to say that, all these references are from my most recent summit, the Digital Fashion Online Summit, where I put together all the latest fashion tech people. And I think that you attended and you watched some of the presentations, etc. And so we launched the robot, which we actually spoke about in our last meeting. And so I actually got that robot to completion.
Awesome.
And you know what? It was thanks to, building it in 3D in CAD, right? And then it came out, it popped out of the factory exactly like that as it was in 3D. And what was interesting in the process there was how I had the CAD designer in South America, right? Because he's the only guy who knew how to build the robot to make it actually fit on the physical robot parts that we had. And then we had to send the digital file over to the factory because they had to adjust the digital file to make it manufacturable, which then made it really ugly. And then I had to send it back to Argentina to beautify it. And it was like this 3 months of sending this file back and forth until I finally said, it looks beautiful. And the factory said it's mass manufacturable. And then at that point, boom, it went into and popped out of the oven physically, in real life, in aluminum and plexiglass and so on. And the same thing with the jacket, right? Is that, it was designed and then constructed and then built, but then we had to mount the electronics inside. And that's been like almost a year and a half process, because throughout that process, we had to then connect it to the cloud, because the concept of the robot and the jacket are for hotels, boutique hotels who are understaffed, and how can we make it easier for them to service their clients, and give additional support to their existing staff, right? We're not talking about replacing somebody or whatever. What we're talking about is reducing stress. So the jacket is designed to help monitor the stress of the manager. And then secondly, he just has to swipe on his sleeve to change the lighting, to change the music, to change the temperature, and to call the robot, which means that he can adapt the environment, the smart hotel environment, in real time without having to walk over to a wall unit or go into the back or whip out a phone, etc. He can just do that through the jacket, which is connected to the smart hotel environment. And that was a process. And we worked with, we collaborated with Amazon using Amazon AWS IoT, because they had a lot of tools in the cloud that could control the smart home environment. So I've you asked me like, oh, is digital fashion where you're at? I did digital fashion in 2000 when I made my Anina dress up game. And people were like, who will ever have an avatar and who will ever download real fashion? And then, in 2010, I built an Anina with a gaming company, 3D with full bone structure. And then I have her now, she looks like me. Okay, maybe her hair's a little bit longer, but she looks like me. Yes, this is my point, right? We need the Rick avatar. We have the Anina avatar. And then now those avatars, if they have full bone structure, you can, that I built this wireless tracking suit, right? You could put on these wireless tracking. So now you can step into my body and control it, right? You can move, the arms and legs are synced up with your body, right? And I've done all sorts of experiments with sending my virtual Anina to do speeches for me in other countries where I double booked myself for speeches and so on. And so it raises a lot of questions of identity and hijacking and security and so on, which we'll get to. But so the digital fashion, I already have my 10,000 outlier hours in that. And as you know, I'm a futurist, so I live in the future. So I'm already have sort of like moved on from that. And I'm into domotics, because that is what is the next big thing, is smart home, smart city, smart buildings, and then smart assistants, right? And so that's what the jacket and the robot are assisting, the smart hotel environment. So nobody needs it now. Everything I do, like, people don't need it now.
That's how it's supposed to be, though, right? Yeah, you develop the solutions, and then everyone realizes, oh, we actually do have a problem here that we need to solve. Yeah, it's reverse. And I think the best solutions or the best inventions on this earth have always happened that way. Because take a look at the light bulb. I mean, even as simple as that was, it's like, how are we going to even utilize this? There wasn't even infrastructure built to power that sucker.
Infrastructure, yes.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting right now when we talk about blockchain and smart cities, and we talk about blockchain and supply chain, when we talk about adding in artificial intelligence into that and decentralizing and decoupling from, the power being in the hands of the few. Now the power is coming to every node on the system, and no one person can take total ownership of the whole system. That's where we're going, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, So with blockchain technology and so on, I'm sure you have a lot more to say about that, but my little jacket fits as one of those nodes on the smart city system and the hotel system and home system.
It's phenomenal. I mean, you also mentioned the word domotics, and that was something, in the current seminar that you're putting on right now that I learned about. I didn't even know that word until this.
It doesn't even exist in Google. I know there's very few. I'm so very ahead in domotics, but it's true.
It's such a fun word.
It's going to be big.
For sure, right? It is. Absolutely. And once people start getting back out again, which a lot are, especially in the US, a lot are starting to get really antsy and trying to get back out into real civilization. But then there's the crew that says, hey, I want to work from home from now on. And domotics is just such a huge fit for them, regardless, or even if you're going to a party at somebody else's house. And I can't wait to see where things go with this. And I stay in luxury hotels, typically when I travel. And there's so much of a gap that I see between the ability of the person that's there, the clerk that's behind the front desk, or just somebody who brings up room service, and how they just have to waste so much time in trying to facilitate things. And then when you get your food delivered via room service, all of a sudden it's, oh, well, you didn't bring me some ketchup to go with my burger, there's a problem that I have with the thermostat. Can you fix it while I'm here? Well, no, I can't. I have to go call maintenance to do that if it's the room service person. The temperature just won't go down for me, whatever it is. I can only imagine them wearing your jacket, or having the robot on call just a couple feet away to provide all these things. And then it just saves so much time because, to your point, it's not eliminating people, because these individual roles still have to exist within that hotel, but now they're able to just facilitate and serve almost in real time when something happens without those delays between types of personnel. It's phenomenal. And you said it's really an IoT jacket too, right?
Yes. And not only that, but think about this. The person who is currently bringing this food to your room, they're either carrying it on a tray or they're pushing a heavy cart. Why does the human have to do that? The human could just walk next to the cart. Imagine if you do that for 20 hours a day, 15 hours a day, 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. That screws your body up. Okay. And that's why later in life, people in hospitality industry have severe problems, with their bodies, because they had to do all of these things that, they should not be doing. Their backs hurt, all sorts of things. But a robot can be carrying. And what can the human do? The human can be greeting you. The human can be talking to you. The human can be checking, how's your day going? Is there anything that I can do for you, right? But the human doesn't have to carry your tray and break their back. That's really what we're talking about here, assisting human to machine, right? And the whole idea, again, also of suddenly you're like, I need this. And then they're like this. And they're like, okay, what do you need? And they're like tapping in a phone. But instead they can be like this with you. Hi, what do you need? Oh, you need a da-da-da-da. Alexa, room 357 would like some chocolate. Can you please bring that? I'm looking at you. We have the humanity back into human to human, right? I didn't have to yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me, what was that? Can I, yes, chocolate. Okay. Yeah. That is not a good experience, right? Or walking over to the wall unit or whatever. Instead, it's we need to get back to doing what humans do well, which is serving and making people feel great. Robot can't do that job, but also, if you've stayed in Las Vegas hotels, tell me the truth. You've seen a robot, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're ugly as sin. They're ugly.
I caught that when you were talking about this.
They look like washing machines, right? They look like freaking washing machines on wheels.
Yep. I've seen
Hello.
some other videos with robots that'll serve. But yes, I've stayed at the luxury hotels in Vegas and I see them. And you're right. They're just metal cubes and they're ugly. I caught that when you were talking about that too, how you built your robot. And I was laughing on the inside because of the world that I live in cybersecurity. And it's a lot of engineers, right? And engineers are very functionally minded, which is great. It's got to be that way because the robot won't work, right? It could look pretty, but it's not going to work. Yeah, but then when I was laughing. I was like, of course it's going to be ugly the first go because the only one that touched it was an engineer. And that's where you fit in.
Yeah. And then talk about a funny story, right? So we get the robot done. And remember, I'm doing all of this virtually. They're sending me videos. I'm like, I need a video. They send me like one video and I'm like zooming in on the video. And it's like, it's done by WeChat. It wasn't even like a high res video. And suddenly, I'm like, what is that? And then I zoom in, I'm like, what is this on the surface? What is that? And then she's like, oh, it's a hole. I'm like, what is there a hole in the beautiful black, smooth? Why is there a hole? And there's 4 of them. Why are they there? Oh, well, we needed to attach the top plate to the frame. So the engineer just drilled a hole and stuck a screw in. And I was like, this is a luxury robot. There was no hole in the schematic.
That's funny.
Like you have to do that over again. And I had to argue with them. But that was the engineer's like, oh, I'll just drill a hole in the top and bolt that sucker down. And I was like, no,
yeah, no kidding.
You can't have like glass black surface, plexiglass shined up and a hole, 4 holes. No, it's not possible,
That's funny.
So just a funny story, right?
No doubt.
I made him do it again. I was like, no, look at the schematic. The screws go from under, and then I took pictures of my furniture in my room and I'm like, even IKEA can do it. Cause they tried to tell me like that it would be impossible. I'm like, IKEA can do it. Y'all can do it. You need to do it. I don't accept this. No, so it was a bit of a fight there, but
yeah, no kidding. I'm glad you were involved because I don't want an ugly robot saying hi to me. That's where I come from.
And then when it's sitting there not being used, because I walk around here in the shopping malls, right? And the robots are like cowering in the corners with their little shields. They're like there with their little like plaques, and they're like, they look terrified. They're like cowering in the corner.
Plaque, yes.
Yeah. And the funny thing is they have wheels, they have navigation, but they're cowering in the corner and the humans have to go up to the robot and touch the shield. Well, then why does that thing need to have wheels on it and a smiley face and an iPad? It could just be a interactive sign, But when our robot is sitting in the hotel lobby and parked, it A, has function because it has a drinks on it. Someone could walk up to it and grab a drink. And B, it blends into the luxury hotel environment. It has the same color schemes, golds, browns, dark browns, mahoganies. Those are commonly the colors of luxury hotels, right? And the other thing is that I built it super modular. So it had the parts that the panels that can come off. So if your boutique hotel is like Snow Chalet, okay, let's put like, leather panels on it. If you are a conference organizer, let's put LED panels on it, and you can put all the logos of your sponsors on it, and it can be tooling around the VIP section. I mean, the idea was to build it so that you could actually fully customize it to match your hotel environment.
For sure. I love the aesthetics of it too. And that's because it doesn't look like a robot. It doesn't look like the ugly Vegas junk, the washing machine, as you called it there. Yeah, it just, as I was taking a look at the images and, even in real life on the demos that you had there at the conference, as I was looking at this, I'm like, this looks like just a high class luxury cart. that's right there for somebody, and it could just easily be a piece of furniture, that's over in the corner or something like that. And I love that the aesthetics are just clean and simple to where it's not that, that robot you're talking about in the corner that's supposed to have a smiley face. Why does it have to be, why does it have to have that sign that says, hey, I'm a robot? I don't think it does.
Well, I think that because it makes it somehow more friendly. But if I were a kid and then, I went up to those white Michelin men looking robots, I'd be terrified. If I were a little kid, wouldn't you be terrified? They look like ghosts, I'd be like, what are these ghosts doing in the lobby? I'd be scared, But if a table rolled up to me with some sweets on it, I would be like, Harry Potter magic,
yes, right? For sure. So, I dreamed about this day. Yes. Right? I knew it would eventually happen. The table's on my side.
Right? And what if the furniture's rearrange themselves every once in a while? But it's not unrealistic. It's not unrealistic to think that these are possible. And when we put 5G into the mix, then, robots can be, and they will be, tooling around already. There's many companies, who have industrial robots, but as I'm in fashion, I had to fashify the robot and also humanize it with the jacket together. So I'm so delighted that you like it. And now we got that funding from the EU. So now the next step is, as my robotics partner says to me, a lot of people are like, oh, now we need to go get funding. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. And he's like, can't we just go sell this robot? This is a beautiful robot. And not only that, it's cheap. Most robots start at $15,000. We can sell them for $5,000. So you can have a beautiful robot for $5,000. It's not a bad deal, to be honest with you. It's kind of a steal, And so he's like, can't we just go sell some robots? I was like, yeah, can't we just go sell some robots? So sort of that's the area. I'm a maker, so I can pretty much make anything. But now I also have to up my game and learn how do we, I can make it, I can manufacture hundreds of thousands of it, but I got to learn now how to sell it. And I think so many people sell it online, right? So many people now are facing the same problem, especially in the retail sector, right? So many retail got shut down. Now they had to pivot and get online. Lots of people waited and were like, this isn't really happening. And then they were like, wow, year one. Wow, we're not back yet. Oh, now year two. Oh my gosh. And so we saw one of the speeches from Muchinetta Kapfunda. She talks about the new business models. And she did a post-mortem on Topshop. Topshop was this amazing store that was like the pillar in London of the hottest fashion. Well, you know what? They died. They totally went out of business. And one of the reasons they went out of business was they had a terrible online experience. They had an awful e-commerce store and they couldn't pivot. They couldn't turn into the new business model, which is your store is now your warehouse and your drive-through. And your store is now your e-commerce, where people do what? What is a store? They go and they order and then they pick up. And now people got so used to this amazing convenience of, the McDonald's drive-through. I don't see them really going back. What's your take on that?
I don't see them going back either. It's an interesting concept too, because that's how I've been shopping for years myself, even personally, is especially with fashion. Even the clothes that I'm wearing right now, I would go and find maybe one or two, and start to find my designers that fit me really well. And that's the drive-through, right? That's the walking into the store to figure out, because there's no trick for it, but maybe there might be a difference in 3D printing in fashion, which we'll get into in a little bit, to where you can actually print something to somebody's specific body type. But as for right now, I would still just go to a store and find what fits me. And half the time I wouldn't even buy that article in the store, because then I would go, if it's Nordstrom or Neiman Marcus, I would go to their website, to their e-commerce. Now that I know the designers that fit me and I know my size, because high-end designers, the clothes just fit. They fit the same way every single time. It's not like shopping at Walmart or Target to where if you know, like me, I'm a large, it's not going to be a large here and then like a large plus from the same shirt from the next person because it's high-end fashion. It's going to fit right as long as you stay with the same designer and the same size. It's going to fit the same way every single time. So I would go into stores and just do that and try things on and maybe buy a couple of articles, if sometimes not even any, and then go online and then fill my cart up with what I know fits me from those designers that I just tried on over the next couple of days. Because it was more pressure free, you know, because back in the day, like 10 years ago, I would shop at the Buckle, right? And that's when all this stuff was in, like Affliction and, you know, and everything else or whatever. And I would go there and they were really great because they worked on commission. And I'd be in the fitting room and they would start to continuously throw more clothes over the top and say, hey, I found another outfit. Hey, I found another, try this one on. I want to see you in this. I think you're going to look amazing in this, man. Your butt's going to really shine. And I know you don't have a butt, Rick, but it's really going to look like it pops on this right here. Right. But they were really good at their job. But then I would go in thinking, I need 2 pairs of jeans. And then I would walk out with 30 pieces of clothing and maybe only wear half. And now it's like, well, now some of these, I guess I really don't like. I spent 3 hours there rather than 30 minutes, you know, and if I didn't intend to do that, that was like my whole day because they sucked me in and they were good at their job in doing that. So now if it's Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, I'll walk in, find the designer, find my clothes, and then that'll be my style for a little while. And I just order online. That's it. So
we call that showrooming.
Yes.
The store is a showroom and a fitting room, but then you buy online and it's delivered to you. You don't have to walk out with bags and packages and so on and so forth. So that was a trend that was happening for a while. But then when the stores got shut down, he who survived was able to turn their store into a warehouse and sell online and service people in the driving parking lot. That is the trend. And it's very interesting. One of my friends has a shop, a very small shop in San Francisco, very famous in the Burning Man community. But luckily, before the pandemic happened, she already had started to create her e-commerce store. So then she finished it. But then her store got shut down. And like you can imagine, Haight-Ashbury area having to pay rent and so on. Oh my gosh. But she was able to pivot to doing drive-throughs. That was the first step. Like people could order online and then they could pick it up at the store. And then she was able to transition to, by appointment. You know, one person could come in and she would service that person, you know, and it kept her store alive. Her store is alive today. And now she has 2 revenue streams instead of 1. She has her online store and she has her physical store and she has her pickup service. So 3 revenues for 3 different kinds of customers. She is going to be able to grow her business because that's the modern way of doing retail, right? And many people couldn't do that. Restaurants, lots of restaurants, those who could do that takeaway, they survived. Those who couldn't pivot like that, they died, right? So it's this dematerialization process of things going online. And some people were able to roll with it, but other people like Topshop couldn't roll with it. They didn't have the mindset.
For sure. And the transition and the pivot, like you're talking about, a lot ignored that as well. You know, and the restaurants you're talking, a client of mine owns 6 Buffalo Wild Wings franchises. And even throughout the pandemic, because most of their revenue typically came obviously from the brick and mortar, the physical restaurants, and specifically from alcohol. When everyone would come in and watch the game, you know, but he still did 70% of his normal revenue throughout the pandemic with no alcohol sales from all the takeout business, from all the takeaway business. And it was only instead of having, because across 6 of his stores fully staffed, he runs about 500 employees, which is a lot of people. It's a lot of labor cost. And he was able to trim that down to 50 people. So not only did he do 70% of his revenue, he also did it with 10% of the labor expense. And yeah, I feel bad, of course, for the people that lost their jobs, but from his perspective, he was still able to provide jobs for 50 people because he did pivot. Unlike Topshop, who just ended up going away. And with fashion designers now too, I'm seeing that pop-up stores are really the way of the future as well. Because it's just, hey, we're releasing a new line. We need to show it to people physically in person, which is, like you said, the fitting room. And they might be up for a couple months and then they're gone. That's the only way that commercial real estate is still almost like on a small little bit of a heartbeat in New York City, which is also a great fashion city, is most of the retailers pulled out, and I think it was millions of people that left the city because of how hard it was hit with the pandemic this year. But commercial real estate was hit really, really hard. And of course, you look at Fifth Avenue or Park Avenue in New York, where all the fashion stores are. A lot of those really struggled and pulled out, but now you see a lot of pop-up stores that are just up here and there. They show the new product line, and then the transaction takes place online.
And let's talk about that, back to digital fashion, right? So
please.
In 2010, I pioneered augmented reality together with HP. And if you go to my YouTube site, 360 Fashion TV, you can see all the videos. I built these huge pavilions. Those are my big events in China with 120,000 people invited by the government, not invited by me, but invited by the government to attend, to learn about the future of fashion. And I created these pavilions where you could walk around and see what a store of the future would look like by actually walking into a store, or walking up to a wall, which I made into a faux store, right? And one of the exhibitions we did was all on augmented reality. So first, with jewelry, high-end jewelry, diamonds, emeralds, high-end jewelry, I built a virtual jewelry store. And we built these virtual kiosks where you could put your hand inside and try on the rings, right? Now, these are rings that are like, De Beers level, right? We collaborated with one of China's leading high-end jewelry designers called Feifei. And so they gave us their jewelry design photos, and then we made them in 3D, right? And so let's just walk through that. Imagine you're in a shopping mall and there's a kiosk there, right? And there's a sign that says, put your hand inside, right? And there's no people. Suddenly you're wearing $1 million ring, right? But there's no security around. You can snap a picture of it on your hand, okay? And you can tap on the screen and, shop it in theory, right? Or you could tap on the screen and then a service representative could, make an appointment for you to come and see it in their, high-end store, right? But suddenly this kiosk can be unmanned or unwomaned. I don't know how to say that. Unpersoned,
Unpersoned.
Right? Unpersoned, it's autonomous, right? And it is still accurately showing the real rings in 3D, etc., right? And so that is a way that they can decentralize their stores, right? And I also created on another side a 9-meter wall with a e-commerce store on it. So it was a photos of different clothing items, and then you took your phone and you pointed it at it, and then the 3D object of the dress or a video of a model wearing the dress appeared on your phone, and then you could click and buy, and it led to their e-commerce site, right? So what does that mean? That means suddenly they don't need to have a store. They can just rent a wall anywhere as long as they have a call to action, right? They can rent a wall and people can shop by, using augmented reality on their wall. So imagine we had this concept back then, or our team had this concept back then. If you had a store it's closed in the night, generally, if you're a clothing store, right? Or, sometimes you go around in shopping malls and they say coming soon, right? And there's this big wall with a big fat graphic on it that's completely useless. What if that graphic, that coming soon, was a digital store? Coming soon, but you could shop us right now online. Or even if it's not even shop us now online, let's just pretend they had no e-commerce. Still see 3D versions of whatever it is coming soon in that store. Like, it's still an experience. And what is happening is people are interacting with your brand. They are remembering your brand. They're getting to know your brand. Shopify right now has a simple way for you to upload a 3D file so that you can do these types of activities. And in the future, you can imagine that if VR environments, right? Shopping, and then you have your goggles on. And then if a store has all their products in 3D, you can go to the store, and in the VR environment, you can virtualize and see those clothings. And in an AR, like, again, triggering off of the wall environment, you can see those 3D objects and then go and buy them. So imagine if during the pandemic, everybody just papered up or boarded up their stores, but had they been smart and put up posters and had their e-commerce and connected it O2O, they probably would have had, instead of having the store that looked boarded up, they would have a nice looking store that was still a store leading to sales. Do you get my point?
Oh, I do. Yeah. I remember standing in San Francisco and seeing Saks Fifth Avenue boarded up in San Francisco, and same with Tiffany's. And it was ugly and looked like it was Zombieland when I was walking through the city there in May last year. There was no interaction. It's just almost like, well, are they ever going to come back? Did they completely go out of business? How's Saks doing in New York? Do they still exist, or are they just blowing everything out and they're just going to stay boarded up forever because it looks pretty dead?
Instead of, imagine if you saw a beautiful poster saying something, inspiring, and then saying, shop us online, point your phone at these 5 new items. And they could have rotated those posters out every week, and then could have spread a much better mood, right?
No joke. Yep. For sure.
But who is not doing these things? So I guess that's always my challenge is that I have had this challenge throughout my, 20 years of experience in fashion technology. I cannot find brands who can grasp these concepts. So that's why I created the Digital Fashion Online Summit, because they, give me 2 days of your life and you will walk out and know what you have to do to survive in the future. I got together all these people that normally would never have time. And, I don't know why they said yes. Maybe just they are my friends, and we know each other from all over the world, and they all said yes. And this opportunity will never come again. And there would be no opportunity to meet these people, unless you're going to those very expensive conferences and flying there and paying the hotel and all of that stuff. And I was very lucky that they all made time and made their expertise available. And I highly recommend people to go. Do you recommend? Did you enjoy watching
it was phenomenal.
Some of the presentations?
Absolutely. It was amazing. And what's the URL that everyone can go to for that?
Oh, digitalfashion.360fashion.net. And there's a free ticket, and then there's also a VIP box seat if you need it. But I really try to make everything that I do accessible because I'm passionate about medium to small brands. A lot of people just go for the high end brands, but what I think we need is to get the medium to small end brands to adopt new technologies so they can become the big brands of the future.
Right on. Like your digital charging wallet, right? Your wireless charging wallet. Yeah.
Yoo-hoo!
Tell me about that, because you were showing me that before the show, and I was like, oh, we need to talk about that.
So, again, like when I did my offline events, I just put these babies on a table and people come by and buy like 5 of them, because they're just beautiful and beautiful materials and high quality manufacturing and everything. And also really awesome colors, I always go a bit crazy on the colors because, I don't know, I'm a woman. So, I want to have lots of colors. And basically you will, it has 5,100 milliamps. It's very lightweight. I found the lightest, thinnest battery out of Japan. It feels just like a wallet. It is a wallet, right? You can fit all of your stuff inside, right? And basically you can carry all your essentials, right? Credit cards and money and coins and whatever else. But then you're also carrying power. And I'm a person who is I'm a super phone user and I'm always running out of power. And so I needed a solution like this so that I wasn't left standing on the street in the rain, unable to get a Lyft or an Uber, and there's no plug and no way to get electricity in sight. And I'm in some, place that looks very scary, and I have to walk a while until I find some convenience store, and then I have to beg them and give them my phone, which is such a security risk for them to like plug it in and do who knows what with, But instead, I just push here, and then it'll go to red, and then I just take my phone, put it on top, and I don't know if you can see that, it starts charging.
I love it. Does it work inside also? Can you pop your phone inside? Because it looks like the size of a clutch. Can you put it inside and charge too?
Yes. So because at the time that I designed these, no wireless charging phones existed.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, now it's all of them. Yep, you got it.
But not at that time. So I created this backwards compatible T cable, which is certified Apple and Android cable. And basically you can just, again, plug your phone in and then pop your wallet, pop this into your wallet, and then you can close up the wallet, and then boom, you're on your way, and your phone is charging, And it's really for minimalists, and it's I recently found out it's for people also very good for people who lose things a lot, because they can attach their keys here too. Lots of women say, I love it. It's like an all-in-one solution. Everything that I need is together. And then I just pop even there's place inside here for like a little lippy-doo, And boom, you walk out the door and see, you guys got it so easy. Women have to carry bags and we're always carrying all this stuff. Now I just walk out the door with this. It is so freeing. It's amazing.
Oh, I'm sure. I love it. Where can I pick up one of those? I mean, not for myself, but they look like phenomenal gifts for me to pick up for somebody.
Well, Mother's Day is coming, and I'm going to be launching a new color for all those fantastic powerhouse women. So you can go to Anina2049.com, which no millennial understands my Blade Runner reference there at all. Not a one. All my interns are like, 2049. I'm like, the future? Blade Runner? They're like, oh, I heard about that movie. I never watched it. I was just like,
that's great.
Oh. But that was the idea, these futuristic wallets for women. But this is really a story of, again, what just got vaporized. The power bank and the cable just got vaporized into an all-in-one solution. Now I don't have to carry the cable, the charger, and the thing, and like juggle all that stuff when I'm wearing some beautiful dress. You know how ugly that looks? Or like you have the cable coming out of your bag and it catches on a door handle. You know how many phones I've smashed like that, So it's really about technology becoming invisible. again, inside of clothing. That's with the wearable tech and the smart garments. But back to digital fashion, now fashion designers, fashion brands, because of the metaverse, because of gaming and avatars and online shopping, if they digitize their products into 3D, now they can even sell their products, right, to the digital fashion market of the metaverse. They have a new revenue stream. And this is the big revolution that is coming and happening. You mentioned, when those sales clerks would sell you a whole bunch of clothes and then you wouldn't wear them. This is a reality. Fashion is the third largest polluter in the world. And the fact of the matter is we need to start making, as a thank you for buying high quality garments, because they last longer and they fit better. And you need less of them, right? And rather than like a whole bunch of junk that you have to throw away later and that goes into the landfill and the incinerators, right? But now you can have your staple garments, but we can have an infinite wardrobe to wear online. We can have an infinite wardrobe that we can, wear digitally. And as soon as glasses and, get augmented reality inside, then we're going to really start seeing that we can wear our digital garments, our digital fashion outside on the street. And if you have those, VR, AR glasses, you'll be able to, we're going to see an amazing Harry Potter world, right? We're going to see artworks that are digital, right? We're going to see, dragons flying through the air. We're going to see people with wings. We're going to also see people wearing really cool fashion, sort of with glasses on, with glasses off, right? It's going to become a mixed reality world, right, that we're living in. Well, what was so exciting about the Worth project is that, and then Karina, who is the leader of the Worth project, she spoke at the Digital Fashion Online Summit when we launched the robot and the jacket. And she was asked, why are you funding artists and fashion designers with technology? And her answer was that by combining fashion designers and technologists, this is how the EU will take their heritage, right? Fashion, artisanship, etc., and combine it with the future. And this is how the EU sees that they will stay competitive. And what's so incredible and what I think is really lacking in the United States is their startups have to rely on VC funding or self-funding or bootstrapping, and instead why we see so much fashion technology and innovation in the EU is because they're funding these cross-border collaborations so that countries can work together. Like, my robotics partner is in Slovenia. Slovenia has the most amazing programmers that are super low cost, but highly educated, right? And Germany, obviously, a very developed country, fashion design, design thinking, etc. So the two of us coming together, and then combined with my partner's knowledge of manufacturing, and then I got stuck here during the pandemic, really shows the power of the project, and so I'm very grateful that we could get it to this far, because now we have something that can be sold, right? And that was the goal of the project. And yeah, I just wondered what your thoughts were about government funding projects like this from your perspective. Some people say that it hinders innovation. I only found that it enabled our project.
No, for sure. And I think it's done the right way and how you have it to. And I see this a little bit in the US, to where it's not when you say government funded, it's also not government produced. Because I think if it's government funded and government produced, then it's way too much control from a government body. But if it's government partnering with private companies like yours, that's a completely different arena, because the government, which is really supposed to be representative of the whole body of the nation, right? They are saying this is where we see is good for our society to go, because at least in democratic countries where there's elections, we've elected our representatives to say, we are putting our trust in you to represent our best interests. So if they feel that our best interest in representative fashion is to go a certain direction or fund a project like yours, then awesome, because now they're putting money, and it's just a flow of the economy. They're putting those funds from taxpayers back into private enterprises. And it's actually, I feel, how the economy is supposed to function that way, rather than the government saying, you know what, we see where we need to go, and we're just going to build a whole nother department and make government bigger, and we're just going to do it on our own. Now it becomes way more government control versus the partnership between government and private.
And also, I looked into grants, and they're all for the military.
Yeah, you got it. Yep.
And it's kind of like you sell your soul to the military, and you cannot ever get out of that loop. That's the problem. You once into that loop, what I read and what I talked to many companies who went that route, they never get to market because they're constantly dependent upon those servicing. Basically, they become outsourcers for the government. They become outsourcers for the government. They never become independent and actually bring their product to the market, right? Because it's so highly specialized, right? So I think that's one of the differences between these EU-funded projects, is that they're also investing in cross collaboration. So, for example, Andra Key, who spoke at the launch, she's from Silicon Valley Robotics, and she's a big advocate of women in robotics. And I think you heard the story. I tracked her down and was like, I need to find a robotics partner, and she didn't want to help me.
Yeah.
She was like, who are you? You're from fashion. Like, they're not going to want to collaborate with you. I was like, just let me talk to him, and I'm so grateful. I did my best smooth talking, I
Nice.
Swear.
I love it.
In the back of the shed, right?
That's phenomenal.
But, yeah. But now I was so proud to show her that her investing that, chip in me came to fruition. And then she talks a lot about how in robotics, we need artists, we need fashion designers. I think that's in technology in general. We need diverse teams, diverse and inclusive teams, because it's different thinking, right? I have a totally different perspective, on technology, because I'm a fashion model and I lived my whole life on my mobile phone, so I have a different life experience, and I can bring that as an asset to the table. But if we don't get those cross collaborations happening, how then it's just engineers working in a petri dish, and then trying to stick technology onto humans, right? That's sort of one of the reasons I think Nokia died,
Oh, yeah, you got
it. They worked in the petri dish and they came up with great stuff, but then they tried to sell it to the humans. Maybe, and that's why I was lucky to collaborate with them, and all our projects were well adopted because I brought my thinking to the table and my language to the table and my innovative point of view to the table. And so we put our strengths together, their hardware and my understanding of fashion, and the, a new plant to blossom was born. And here we are today with mobile blogging and blogging and all sorts of new technologies because of that. So yeah, I would love to see more of that. And again, that's why I do fashion, 360 fashion, because I bring the fashion designers, I bring the corporates, I bring the investors, and I bring the startups together, because it's only together that we can really make this thing work. It's an ecosystem. And back to China, I think that's one of the strengths of China is they work in the we, and the West works in the me. And it takes an ecosystem to bring a new, way of doing things to the world, right? Even me, I'm struggling to explain to women online why they need my wallet. But I tell you one thing, I've never gotten a return. Never. Even from people who bought my wallet said, don't know me. No returns. Because once you start using this and you realize how it frees you, you're like, wow, I didn't know I needed that.
Oh, for sure. Right on. Anina, you're amazing. And everyone listening needs to go follow you on Instagram at AninaNet. And look at the URLs in the show notes, because the Digital Fashion Summit URL is there. And also the link to Anina's amazing wireless charging wallet, which I'm going to order a couple just because. So you need to do the same. Yes. Anina, thank you for being on.
Wow. So exciting to talk with you and also share this experience, because we come from different perspectives, but it's always like, so we have so much in common. And I'm so thrilled every time I talk with you. Thank you so much. And thank you for your inspiration. I follow you on Instagram, and when I feel low, one of your awesome inspirational quotes pops up and tells me I can do it and don't stop. And I'm very grateful for your mindset and that amazing, spirit that you spread on the internet. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thank you. What's shaking? Thank you for joining me on the All In Podcast. Click the subscribe button and smash that bell for notifications. Text me 312-535-8520. Follow me on social media at Mr. Rick Jordan. See you next episode. I am Rick Jordan, and I approve this message.